Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden Williams here, and I'm back with season 7. And you might be used to me normally doing this from my home studio, or occasionally, in a meeting room or in a hotel. But it's almost like a kind of crazy fever dream. This. I'm actually in a room in Liberty with a real life audience. So we're doing this podcast live for the first time at Liberty in London. So just to prove it, here's a real life audience. So thank you so much for coming, thank you for listening, and my guest on the first episode of the new season is Perfumer Pierre Negrin. Let's give him a warm welcome. Thank you. So Pierre has created fragrances for Amouage, for Ralph Lauren. He did Black Orchid famously for Tom Ford, and we're here today to talk about Tudor for Liberty's LBTY fragrance line. It's not, I thought first of all it was Liberty, but it's not, it's LBTY, it makes much more sense that way. It's a new fragrance line of 5 fragrances that came out late last year working with some of the world's best perfumers. It has a real connection with this building, and in fact now there's a fragrance lounge here at Liberty which opened earlier this year on the lower ground floor. And I was lucky enough to come along quite early for what they call the fragrance concierge. So I got to come to the lower ground floor. The sales assistant in the concierge sort of asked me about my perfume preferences. I said, I like woody fragrances, I like bright, invigorating citrus fragrances. So she went away and came back with this silver tray with maybe, half a dozen, 6 or 7 fragrances. All some beautiful brands, one of which was LBTY Tudo. And I'm not just saying this because he's here, but of all the, and I think as young people say, it's one of those full circle moments. But of all the fragrances, the one I gravitated towards the most was Tudo. So a few months ago, had Tudo in my house and in my life, and it's a beautiful fragrance, and honestly, it kind of suits my personality and suits me, and it's become one of my favourite scents. And we're lucky enough to have the perfumer Pierre here, and there's a real connection to the building. So we're in this building that's now 100 years old, I think, the Liberty building. The brand itself started a bit before that, but this building is 100 years old. So there's a connection to the creator, and there's a connection to the building itself. So I think, first of all, Pierre, I wonder if I can ask you, how did it come about working with Liberty on Tudo? How did that come about?
Well, the project was issued now several years ago, and so the concept, I really loved it at first sight because, of the proposition that they came up with, and knowing that everything that Liberty does is always with an artistic approach and considering art as the priority. I was really excited about it. And now when I saw that Tudor, concept, for me this was really like my dream come through, because in reference to the building, to the history and the heritage of Liberty, knowing that they built this place using some old boats or ships, right?
Yeah, ships.
Yeah. And taking that wood, I was like, okay, I'm really gonna go for it, enjoy as much as I can using all these woody ingredients that I really love on a regular basis when I create fragrances.
And how did it work, Pierre? Did you have a broad remit where you could choose which fragrance to work on, or were you working specifically on a certain sort of category of fragrance? Was Tudor the idea right from the beginning?
No, I think we could work on any of them. It was pretty much very open. It's based on what attracts you the most. And but for me, with Tudo, there was no second thoughts, because again, I saw the opportunity here to use all these beautiful woods that I really enjoy on my daily routine, in fact, when I formulate. And so that was a fantastic opportunity.
I think the audience here have an opportunity to have a sniff of the fragrance. Let's get interactive so we can actually smell the fragrance. Pierre, it would be really helpful at this point if you could tell everyone a little bit about the fragrance and some of what they might smell this evening.
So the fragrance has a pretty simple construction. Again, because I wanted to really highlight the woods, and here overall it's based on sandalwood. You can probably smell the sandalwood along with some cedarwood mixed together, and this is trying to represent, you know, look at the room we are in here, it's all about wood. So that's what I wanted to communicate and to showcase, in fact.
Yeah.
And so on top of that, on top of the woods, you have some freshness going on, and the freshness comes with a little touch of ginger, you know, a couple of things here and there right on top, because again, look at the building, the Tudor, you have that arrow shape, when, you know, and for me, the ginger does that. The ginger is very vibrant, it's very vertical, and it was a great image, a representation of that arrow shape of the Tudor building.
I always find it fascinating talking to perfumers when this architectural element comes into play, because there's so much commonality between the two things, and the way you talk about the sort of foundations being the wood, and we can look around this room and this building, in fact, and architecture plays a big part in what you've done here, as you say, the kind of pointy top and the roots and the foundation of the building being wood.
Correct, and in general, that's pretty much the way I approach also the creation of the fragrance that I work on. Yeah, I see that like an architect does. You know, to me, when I use sandalwood, cedarwood, or vetiver or musk or other things, it's like when you give an architect water, cement, wood, iron, and he's gonna design a building for you, and you're going to build the building with all those materials. And for me, it's a bit of the same. I pick and choose ingredients, and from there, I have a vision, and I'm trying to, you know, to execute and build all the different phases coming from the ground up.
Yeah.
You know, I have my foundation, and then the walls being kind of the core of the fragrance, and then I put the ceiling and or first, second, third floor depending, and the ceiling and the roof, and that's. But I do that when translating ingredients which in my mind represent all these different stages.
I think it's a really interesting way to approach fragrance. What do you want the consumer to feel when they're wearing Tudo?
I want them to feel good. I want them to feel elegant. I want them to feel also a little bit, not a little bit, very confident, you know, and comfortable.
Mm.
A fragrance has to give you pleasure. You need to, when you put it on, you need to be. It's like make me feel good, add a lot of pleasure to your day, and so when you use Tudor, you want to be very confident. You want to feel good. You want to project also an image that is sophisticated, yet elegant, and also with some delicate charm, you know, going and with a very nice sillage, in fact.
It really has. I love this quote you said about you're not shouting when you wear Tudor.
No.
It's all about quality, and I think we all recognise some of these fragrances now that are big room rockers, with massive projection. But this one, doesn't announce itself necessarily before you enter a room. There's a sophistication to it, I think.
Well, I think it's important because if you have a fragrance that really shout out, you're probably gonna disrupt a little bit the people surrounding you.
And people in the restaurant.
Right. But on the opposite, if you have a fragrance that doesn't project at all, you're gonna feel frustrated because you're not gonna smell it, so that's why I think you need to find the right balance among those two elements. And Tudor to me does that because when you spray it, the projection initially is nice, and then it quiets down, but in a very pleasant and elegant way, I think.
I think so.
And there is a nice richness from the woods again. One more time, the woods, I'm totally obsessed with woods because to me, woods, they add elegance and they elevate anything when you work on a fragrance, when you create a fragrance. If you use a lot of fruity notes, for instance, or a lot of sweet notes, if you just mix fruits and sweet, you get something what I call salade de fruits, or something like a cake or a fruit cake. It's okay. It's fun. It's pleasant, but I don't think it's elegant. The same mix, fruits and sweet. As soon as you start injecting some woods in there, all of a sudden you change completely the perception of that mixture, and to me this is what makes a big difference.
So the answer is give the cake some wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it works.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid of the word. I think one of the reasons probably all of us are fascinated by perfume is the storytelling element, and I'm really interested to know as a perfumer what you think about storytelling. Is it a big part of perfume for you? Do you feel like a fragrance needs to tell a story, or should we just take it on face value?
All right, so this is a big debate because today, because in the world we live in, I think the storytelling sometimes become more important than the smell of the fragrance. Now, if you look at the history of the fragrance industry, the most successful fragrances in history, for most of them, have been fragrances where there was almost no story.
Yeah.
Take Chanel
number 5 doesn't have a...
What was the story?
Yeah.
This is a bottle with a number 5 written on it,
Yeah.
and that was it. And so it shows that when a fragrance is really good and really appreciated by the consumers, here's the story, the smell, that's it. You don't need to, go on and explain and tell all these things about the fragrance. Now, today, it's a little bit different because of the social media, the communication, the way we do things. And sometimes people insist much more on the story behind the scene or the story about the fragrance. And if the fragrance is good, the smell is good, it will remain and it will be memorized,
memorable.
And memorable.
Yeah.
But if you have an excellent story, and the smell that is pretty, average or nothing really spectacular, the fragrance will be forgotten very, very quickly. Because people will buy into the story, because the story will make them dream, But at the end of the day, when they're going to use the fragrance, they're going to be disappointed, and they're going to be like, "Well, it's not exactly what I was thinking."
And maybe they don't buy a second bottle.
And they won't buy a second bottle.
No, you're right. I think, and as a journalist, you know, we get lots of press releases, and sometimes it feels like the story and the narrative is almost retrofitted and put on afterwards, and that's the worst. You know, as you say, the perfume itself should be the hero, should shine through. I'm happy if there is a reason and there's a narrative there, but I feel like I don't need extra story that seems puffy and superfluous.
No, because if the product is really good, has signature, it's outstanding, and you know, it has a lot of drive and recognition, you don't need really to talk about it.
I suppose you're right in, you know, talking about Chanel No. 5, but even something more modern like Santal 33 or something. There's not a story particularly. It's just the story is that lots of people liked it and everyone started wearing it.
And that's the end of the story.
The end of the story. Short story. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, talking about the creative process, I'm really interested in how you approach your work earlier in the process. Are you someone that takes inspiration from art or from architecture or from music or history? You know, how do you start the process of making perfume?
So the inspiration comes from life. Just, you know, everything in fact influenced me. The art, so all kind of arts, could be music, could be painting, sculpture. I love, of course, all these kind of art. But also cooking. You know.
Oh, really? Are you a keen cook?
I cook.
Yeah?
I cook. And so the reason why, now I'm going to tell you another secret of mine, is the spices. Spices, I go crazy with spices. I love spices.
In cooking and in fragrance?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't use them as much as woods, for instance, because very often spices, depending on what kind of spice you use, you turn people off, you know, for different reasons. Because there is this link to the culinary aspect of it, and depending on which region of the world you work or you want to address, you can have some negative perception.
So culturally, there'll be some differences. Yeah?
Because of culture, yeah. But spices are really also magic, and that's why. Again, cooking is another source of inspiration for me, and that's why I try spices. You know, I'm like, okay, let's see if this works with that, and then I taste it, and then I use it in my fragrance. You know.
The nutmeg works very well in Tudo, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So always a little touch of spice if I can do it, and if it's workable, you know.
And if people are coming around to your house last minute, and you have to create a dish, a signature dish, what's the food that you can cook and is your kind of signature?
Well, being from the south of France, I always tend to go back to some like traditional meal from our region, and I love cuisine niçoise, for instance, but again, cuisine niçoise is not so spicy. So what I do just for fun, sometimes I'm trying some spice in there. You know, I'm like, hey, why not
try something new?
Try something new and different.
Yeah.
That's the approach. Each perfumer has to do that. You need to get out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, you always do the same thing over and over again, and at the end, it's not. You get a little bit stuck in your creative process.
That must be a real challenge, actually, for a perfumer to keep pushing yourself to not tread the same path.
It is. But that's why also, like I said, for an inspiration, it's about the life itself, because what you like at the age of 25 is not what you like at the age of 50, and what you have seen or what you have smelled at the age of 25 is not what you have seen and smelled at the age of 50. And so everything, you know, has is influencing you on how you do your work.
So you absorb everything in the world around
you absorb, and also you tend to streamline and kind of downsize a little bit your approach. Picasso was saying, you know, when I have a training, I'll give him 4 colors. That's it. Now, do whatever you want, but that's all you have, 4 colors. So make your own, you know, and it's the same with for perfumer. When you start working, you tend to mix a lot of things because you think, oh, I need this, I need that. Oh, if I don't have a little bit of spice, and then I need maybe more of a jasmine to get to this effect. But later on, with the experience, with all what you've learned throughout your career and your life, you realize that you can achieve a great signature with much less ingredient.
Less is more.
And less is more. Less becomes more, yeah.
Is it helpful when you're creating to think of, so on something like Tudor, do you have a person in mind that you think will ultimately wear the fragrance?
I don't think about a person, I just think about an effect and a state of mind, you know, and a feeling. I'm like, I really want this person to enjoy the smell and to have a very good, how can I say, you know, when you all of a sudden you become almost, you feel stronger, you feel more confident, and you also you feel more elegant, and it's all this like positive effect that you are looking for, that you are thinking about.
It's that idea.
More than just 1%.
I see. There's always that, I think that, you know, that idea we have of fragrance being an invisible power, an invisible cloak that helps us through the days and makes us better, stronger, happier. It can do that, it can have that magic, I think.
It should.
Yeah.
It should, and hopefully, you know, with Tudor you get that when you wear it.
I do. I mean, I'm wearing it today, obviously. But I think what's great is you were talking about the evolution of the fragrance and getting that kind of hit of ginger and nutmeg first of all, but then as it and the florals in the mid. But as it settles down, it does settle down into a beautiful, warm, woody fragrance that I find very reassuring.
Yes, there are also some musk.
Yes.
Along with the wood.
Yeah.
And again, that makes it very comfortable, very soothing, you know. And it's like the dry down stays with you, but it has that delicate, very subtle, but present at the same time, you know. And it stays with you, and it's like becomes a companion in a way, you know.
No, I know what you mean. And I think, look, we're here in the beautiful Liberty store, and it would be remiss of me, having such an expert here, to ask about a signature scent. So if someone was wanting to go down to the fragrance lounge and they were starting from scratch and they didn't really know the kind of category of fragrance, how, as a perfumer, as an expert, how would you advise someone to find their signature?
Well, I think what I do very often when I create a fragrance, like a bespoke fragrance, I sit down with a person and I try to create the DNA, olfactive DNA of the person. So I'm gonna ask question about what she or he likes in terms of smell, in terms what the person eats, what the person, how they use, what kind of product they use to wash their hands, to wash their hair, to shampoo. All these kind of, when they go out, do they prefer beach or mountain, or do they prefer walk in the forest, or all these different.
So you get a sense of the person and their preference.
And the personality of the person, and what they like, what they don't like, and from there you can recommend, make a recommendation and guide them to go a little bit more in this direction or that direction, depending on their personality. But at the same time also, you can push them in what they like, but also you can show them something completely opposite, just to open up maybe their mind and their spectrum, and show them that there are other things that.
It was back to your idea of pushing the envelope, trying something new. Yeah. So you actually make bespoke fragrances for people if they want them.
Yes, I've done that, and I can do that if people want to have a fragrance just for themselves, It's,
well, the name of the podcast is Man in the Mirror, and part of the process is to ask my guest about their morning and evening routines and products that they use themselves. So I'm interested from you, Pierre. Do you have certain products that you're loyal to in the morning and the evening? Is it quite a minimal process, or?
Yeah, in fact, I don't use much products.
Do you not?
No. I grew up in the south of France, and when I was a kid, I used to have just Savon de Marseille, which is a very kind of neutral soap, and even today, as soon as I can use it, I know now they come up with all these kind of fancy, smell and almost flavor for some of them. So I try to avoid that, because I want to keep as neutral as possible. Because working on my fragrances, when I create them, and then I want to put them on my skin, I want to study them, I want to smell them, and I want to follow them during the day. So that's why I don't want to have any interference with any other smell, and I try. My routine is very, very basic. It's just water and Savon de Marseille or a neutral soap.
And in terms of shaving products and things like that, do you tend to wet shave, or?
Well, again, same. I don't.
Not scented.
Not scented, or there is one brand I kind of like is Aesop.
Oh yes, yeah.
I like Aesop.
Available here at Liberties, ladies and gentlemen.
But for aftershave, or
really
because they have very simple kind of smell. It's geranium, or it's orange flower, or neroli. So it's pretty straightforward, and that's very basic, very.
Yeah. It's good quality stuff, isn't it?
And it's good quality. So yeah, but again, I do that on a very limited base. It's once in a while.
Okay. Many of you will know there's this statistic that's thrown around quite a lot, that there are more astronauts than there are perfumers. So I think there's less than, it's true apparently, there's less than 600 perfumers. So I wonder, Pierre, for you, what was your path towards this rare and unique job? What were you interested in as a younger man and as a student? Were you very scientific?
No, but yes, and what happened is I was born and raised in Grasse, in the south of France, so I grew up with the industry.
It's the perfect place to be.
Right. So I grew up with all these, the the plants, all that scenery with the jasmine fields, the rose fields, the orange flower trees and all that, the lavender fields. And so I've been exposed very, very young, very early to the industry, and to the smell also of the ingredients and the raw materials.
So did you become interested at quite a young age?
Yes, and I was very curious, very attracted. So I was always smelling things. I was always, asking and questioning. And of course, being in Grasse, pretty much everybody you knew was working in the industry. So
it's pretty much all there is
right,
to work.
That was exactly at the time that it was almost the only activity. You know?
Were you there because your parents worked in the industry, or did you just happen to be born there?
My grandparents, both my both grandfathers were raw material brokers for the industry.
Right.
Yeah. So
there was a reason to be in that part.
Yes, yeah, that was also another factor, that kind of hooked me to the industry. And so as soon as I had the opportunity, I was still in school, and during the summer I was getting the opportunity to do some training in some fragrance houses, just as a summer job,
Yeah.
And then I realized that I was loving this. So little by little, after graduating from high school, I went to college and studying chemistry. But that didn't really excited me, I was not so into it. So as soon as a company in Grasse opened the doors and hired, yes, they hired me, it was Robertet.
Yes.
And that's where I started.
Fragrance houses.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I started, and I started learning, and from there, little by little,
It's so interesting, and I guess you've got that educational scientific background, but it was interesting that you didn't want to pursue just a pure science or chemistry kind of life, but I guess this is almost the best of both worlds, where there's an artistic side to it and there's also a chemistry science side to it.
Yeah, in fact, well, perfumers come from all kind of different backgrounds.
Yeah. Some are self-taught.
Yes, and some study law, and some are for pharmacists, others are, historian, so you can find everything pretty much. But at the end of the day, what counts the most is the dedication, the love of the product, and the work. It's really hard work, especially at the beginning of your career, because can you imagine that we work with about 800 to 1,000 different ingredients, raw materials. So how many letters in the alphabet?
26.
Right.
Is it?
So,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think so.
Think about an alphabet with about 800 letters. That just gives you an idea of the possibility, the combination of what you can write, or like the amount of words you can create.
Blows my mind.
See?
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's endless, pretty much. And that's why you have all these products and all these new fragrances coming out every year, and all these brands, these new brands, and constantly releasing, because
there's infinite possibilities.
Almost infinite possibility, It's
like songs. There's always going to be different songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's, and this is, it's part of the magic also. That's why I think I love it, because it's a lot of possibilities, and there are no rules.
Yeah.
No rules. How many times I've found people trying to explain me, like mainly scientist people, I don't have anything against scientists, but like how many I've seen engineers, or people very PhD, very
Or telling you how it should be done.
Yeah. Tell me, if you look at this molecule, that should give you this and that, and if you mix it with this and that, you should get there and smell that. Well, you know, it doesn't work this way. Because of course you can try, you can do it, but most of the time it's not what's happening. So there are no rules, you know. You need really to put these things together and mix them and smell, and it's really a trial and error process because it's very, very complicated, and there are so many different parts. Again, a formula is, think about a car. If you want to build a car, you have a certain amount of parts that you use on a regular basis, and by using this amount of parts, you're going to get a car with 4 wheels, an engine, and a wheel, and you'll go. And with the fragrance, the same. You can have a fragrance with very few ingredients, like basic things, but again, you have no limitation, so you can, to the end of your imagination, try to add parts and see what happens.
And that's why we love it so much.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's coming next, Pierre? I assume you're working on many things at once. Pierre is lucky enough to live, he was telling me just before we started that he lives on the east coast in the States and in south of France, so you can work in both places. So have you got lots of projects on the go at the moment?
Yeah, not a lot, but enough to keep me busy. And also, what I try to do now is really work on like specific projects, things that I like and I enjoy also working on, and with people I also love, because that's really part of the process when you
It's a relationship business, I think, isn't it? It's about forging good relationships.
Yes, it's very important because we are talking about something that is invisible. You can't weight it, you can see it, and you can hear it. So you really need to trust the person you have in front of you. And that dialogue is crucial, because otherwise it's almost impossible to find a common ground and an agreement, you know.
And I guess you want as little interference along the way from other people. You want to keep that line of communication as pure as possible, ideally.
Yes, as pure and as direct as possible, because again, going back to the analogy of cooking, think about a chef in the kitchen, and guy is trying to create a new sauce for a meal, and he has all these people around surrounding him and telling him, oh, you know, you should put probably more salt. Oh, but I don't think there is enough pepper. Oh, but how about we put some garlic now, because with an addition of garlic it should be perfect. And the other ones, no, there is too much garlic. Oh my God, this is crazy. So
then you've got the guy behind him saying, what about strawberries?
How about strawberries? And you know, and it's
be quiet.
Drives you nuts.
Yeah.
Drives you nuts. So you go around in circle and you don't go anywhere.
Pierre, my final question, as the name of the podcast is Man in the Mirror, I always like to ask my guests how they feel about the man that looks back at them. You know, there's this idea of self-image and what we see. You know, when you're getting ready in the morning and Pierre looks back at you in the mirror, how do you feel about him?
Well,
it's deep. It's a deep one.
Yeah, it's a deep one. Yeah, I feel, I look at him and I'm like, I am a sage. You know, can you say that?
A sage.
A sage.
Yeah. A wise man.
My nature is like this. You know.
I can see that.
So I look at this guy. I'm like, okay, you are what you are. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to, pretend you are this or that. Just accept reality and deal with it.
Yeah.
And try to manage it as best as you can.
I like that. You've got a very sort of straightforward way of thinking about things.
Yeah, because I think you shouldn't go really against nature. You shouldn't fight nature, because otherwise you are constantly fighting yourself pretty much.
And it's not a battle that we can win in the end. Is
And
it?
if we can win, exactly. So you just need to go with what the day is going to give you, nature is giving you, and try to make the best out of it. So that's how I look at things, and I very often enjoy little things during the day rejoice me. When
The simple pleasures.
simple pleasure, yeah.
Me too.
Like smelling a flower blooming in the morning.
Yeah.
Recently, I planted cistus in my yard in the south of France, and during in May, it was last month. Every morning, the cistus was blooming. All the flowers, a lot of flowers were blooming in the morning, and at night they were collapsing and falling on the floor.
And then every day it starts.
And
again.
every day it starts again. In the morning you have another batch of beautiful small white flowers like that. And I was watching this every day. I was like,
It's like a lesson there for us somewhere, isn't there? I think.
yeah. And so that's a very simple thing, little pleasure that rejoice me, and I'm like, okay, this is so great just to watch simple things like that, or to have a meal like you have prepared, you have cooked, or even if you didn't cook it yourself, but just eating something that's gonna make you feel good, and you go out, you get some basil leaves or mint leaves, or you grab some thyme in the yard. I have oregano on the floor everywhere.
Do you?
Yes, in my property in the south of France. So just walking, in the morning.
You get that smell.
Yeah, because I crush it with my feet,
Yeah.
So it's still dewy in the morning, and so there is some whiteness on the floor. And with my feet, when I walk, I crush those oregano leaves. It smells so good. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And so just little things like that,
Pierre, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to chat with you this evening and to hear more about Tudor and to hear about your life and your work. And I really appreciate it. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.